Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
There we go. Look at that. Champion. Talk about timing.
Thursday!
Woo!
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Now, you know what we usually do? We usually do the hand sanitizer.
Are you meant to
before the
hand...
mask.
Yeah. Hand sanitize before the mask and then flick it
Right.
away?
I do before and after.
Do we do before or after?
Both.
All of it. All the time.
Woohoo!
All the hand sanitizing. Fantastic. Well, what are we doing today?
Beautiful. Chardonnay, finally.
Chardonnay, kids.
Hooray for Chardonnay.
Sorry, Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Oh, yeah.
Chardonnay.
Chardy.
Chardonnay.
There was a discussion to be had about whether or not we could do an entire Chardonnay tasting, only pronouncing the word Chardonnay.
Yeah,
wrong.
I was tempted to just say it wrong the entire time to see if anyone would correct me every time.
Chardonnay.
Maybe we've all been watching too much
Yeah.
Kath and Kim.
You
Anyway,
bunch of Chardonnays, you.
let's kick things off. Woo!
Beautiful. Alrighty, so we've got a Liz and we've got Ian. Hello, Ian. Perry, your setup looked fantastic. All these nibbles and everything. Oh,
Yum.
delicious.
Jealous.
And we've got Janine as well.
Hello,
Janine's
hello,
on.
hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Get into the Chardonnay.
Now, what do we need to know about Chardonnay? Chardonnay.
Well, there's lots to know about Chardonnay if you want to know lots about Chardonnay.
Well, that's why we're here, Ross.
Well, I remember over the years there's been a lot of speculation about the origins of Chardonnay.
Okay, yes.
Because if you go back in history, it wasn't around forever. It's a sort of a...
Not forever.
No, I reckon it turned up in the 1860s, 1870s, somewhere there. It wasn't before that.
Yeah, okay.
And it kind of supplanted a number of other grapes across Europe. One of which was Gouard, and the other which was Pinot Blanc.
Ooh-ah-goo-ah.
That's right. And there's always speculation for a long time about where it came from and how it was be. But I remember having a chat with Bill Chambers at Chambers Rosewood back in the late 70s, and he had this grapevines called Gouard, and he said that was one of the parents of it. And he was pretty adamant about that, but there was no real documentation of any of that until along come the 90s, and they have DNA testing, and of course the guys in Montpellier University did the DNA testing on it and go, Bill was right.
Oh.
One of the parents was Gouard and the other parent was Pinot Noir.
Oh, Gouard Pinot Noir. There you
Quite
go.
interesting that, especially if you can find some Gouard, which is pretty rare these days. They did some genetic testing in Gouard, which is almost completely gone from the Australian winemaking repertoire, is kind of the mother of a lot of white wines. Made like a lot of the French white wines, your Chenin Blancs, your all sorts of other things. Ended up being one of the things that got hybridized with lots of red wine grapes to
Riesling
turn them,
or something as well? Or
to turn them into white wine grapes.
Yeah.
So Pinot Grigio as well, all sorts of different things.
There you go. Beautiful. We've also got a Linda. She's got a Chardonnay.
Woohoo! Hooray!
Fantastic.
And we are starting with the Yarrawood Yarra Valley Chardonnay from 2018.
Now, what
From
goes...
the Yarra Valley.
Ooh.
Ooh.
What goes into making a Chardonnay? Because I know a lot of people talk about oak aging and some people talk about unwooded and all that sort
Well,
of
the
jazz.
interesting thing about Chardonnay, it seems to be fairly malleable, if you know what I mean. It'll take, you can do a lot with it. You can highlight different aspects of the Chardonnay grape by using different yeasts, different fermentation techniques, fermenting it in a barrel, doing a malolactic fermentation after you've done the primary fermentation, how it reacts with oak, what sort of oak it reacts with. So it can do a lot of, highlight different flavours. So there's a whole spectrum of flavours. There's melon flavours, there's peach flavours, there's nectarine flavours. If it's a bit riper and not so much oak, you'll get banana and pineapple and passion fruit.
It could be quite a robust wine.
So the winemakers tend to love it because you can do so much with it, so they can get an idea in their head. Well, we can do the. Oh, we'll use this sort of oak, we'll use this sort of yeast, and we'll get these sort of flavours, and then they go off on this whole.
All different sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, and you know, and then of course we went back to this unoaked Chardonnay business where you could do all the same things but without the oak. So then it's like what yeast we use and whether we ferment it in a barrel or we ferment it in stainless steel or la 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 la, you know, and what influences what.
Okay.
So
do you think that's more...
that's why
it's
winemakers like it because it's got so much to play with.
Yeah, okay. You can't do that as much with many other things, can
No,
you?
most others have a fairly, you know, these are the flavours you expect out of Riesling or Pinot Grigio or whatever, but Chardonnay has got a much broader palate.
And
That
you
being
do this and
said,
it does that.
the versatility of Chardonnay is sometimes
Its downfall.
makes it its downfall because it means that because of the versatility of the wine, it can often fall into winemaking trends.
Yes.
Which is where you get a whole decade where we're only making
Over
heavily
oak.
buttery over oak Chardonnays, and then they swap it over and it becomes these clean, crisp, tank only,
Okay.
no wood Chardonnays. So I think we're finally getting to a stage where we've kind of got over that style of, you know,
you really like what you like.
pick a
and it
flavour of the
doesn't-
decade sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. I think with these particular wines, they're all kind of fairly different vineyards.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful.
Beautiful. Let's
So
jump
we're
into
starting-
this Yarrawood.
Yarrawood. This is from Yarra Valley, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
A 2018.
It's very interesting. They have a variety of wines called Tall Tales, and they have a little lyrebird with that beautiful tall plumage on it. And I never really understood the connection there. And it turns out they call some of their wines the Tall Tales because they grow their vines in a vertical structure.
Interesting.
So if you go to most vineyards, they sit at about just above waist height. But Yarrawood stack a trellising system, and so they get up to a little bit over 6 foot, so that they can get extra wind through the grapes and a little bit more sunlight from the canopy.
Through the grapes.
Yeah.
A Chardonnay quite a hardy grape. Tough. Can grow.
Middle of the road.
Okay.
I
Because
mean,
you can grow it in. Well, I guess it's Margaret River, sort of warmer
Yeah.
climate, I suppose.
Oh, it'll grow in a lot of places, but it's not as tough as Semillon. I mean, the really tough grapes, things that were Shiraz and Semillon.
Okay.
And then you go to Riesling and Cabernet and stuff. It's sort of, but it's not the top, but it's not one of those ones that's hard to deal with either. It's sort of middle of the road.
I was doing a bit of research in the Yarra Valley, and these guys are on the sort of the valley floor, the coolest part of the Yarra Valley. And they were saying that they really intentionally structured the entire vineyard before they planted it, or replanted it, so to speak. And the first thing that they prioritised was the Chardonnay, because they wanted it on the flattest, lowest part of the vineyard,
Okay.
so that they could plant their Pinot Noir on the hills and all sorts of things.
What's the first thing we look at in the wine? The colour.
The colour.
Very pale.
Really pale.
Hint of what?
Almost
A
green.
greeny yellow.
Slight hint of tinge of lime to it. Yeah, just a bit pale.
Grassy straw colour.
Yeah.
We've also got. Sorry, I've just. Christine has loved it, and we've also got Andy. I'm here in place of Joshua, who unfortunately has been trapped at work. I enjoy Chardonnays from the Chris Chablis through the 90s heavily oaked. Welcome, Andy.
Lovely.
Well, before we get on to, oh no, we'll finish this. Then we'll go to the next thing.
Let's get into the wine. Oh, really lovely nose, actually.
It's a little bit earthy, almost.
A
Well,
little
that's what I got straight away. But
See, I kind of get like jasmine and honeysuckle, like those really subtle floral notes.
okay.
But yeah, a bit of earthiness is coming through. It's interesting. A lot of these more fragrant white wines have that sort of like grassiness, or not grassiness, but like straw.
I
hay.
I get nectarine.
A little bit more fresh grass. White nectarine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's really coming through.
I don't get any peaches. No.
Almost.
Sometimes you get cling peaches.
Yeah.
That's when it's a bit riper, I think. But this is sort of white nectarines. That's good.
I almost get like a crisp apricot sort of smell.
Oh yeah, bit of apricot.
Like not super ripe apricot.
No, I don't get that. I'm sticking with the nectarine.
It's interesting. There's like fruit, floral, a little bit of earthiness. Without
I'm just trying to put my finger.
quite crisp.
No, you both are Chardonnay drinkers, aren't you? You enjoy Chardonnay.
We are.
You really enjoy the Yarrawood, don't you? Yeah.
It's one of
Well,
Ross's favourites.
It's one of my favourites. Like we sell it for $16.95. I think for $16.95 you're not going to get a better Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Simple as.
It's also really consistent. I've got to say, like in terms of vintage, you've been drinking that for years, and I've tasted a couple of different vintages back to back, and it's been really, really high quality every time.
Christina said a little bit of lemon and something bright. Nectarine is a good guess. Ooh, Ian says peach and jasmine.
The jasmine comes through on the palate, actually.
Yeah, when you taste it, yeah.
It's like that really dry white floral.
Oh, very nectarine.
And a bit of grapefruit, I think. Is that what's grapefruit?
Possibly.
Like white grapefruit, like
Yeah.
yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, white grapefruit. Not quite ruby red. This is going to sound really pretentious.
Yeah.
But that floral note's almost chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Actually, that's exactly what it is, which is quite
You
strange.
think?
Yeah, I've been I recently opened
Some chrysanthemums.
some chrysanthemums and was drinking some chrysanthemum tea. Sorry. I find the word
Chrysanthemum.
I find it very hard to say.
It is a tricky word.
No, the problem with chrysanthemum is if you've ever seen them do it on Monty Python, the trouble is you never come back from there, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Is there anything
Linda
else?
says a beautiful dry finish in this one. And
Yeah.
Lisa said delish. Christina says, I see what you're meaning by the stone fruit. I'm now tasting peach.
It's got a really round mouthfeel on the middle palate without being heavy. I find Chardonnays,
They can be a bit cloying.
well, to make a really full-bodied wine, they overdo it. But that's really juicy without being heavy and oily.
Would
Yeah.
you? What would you call this one? Like if you were selling this Chardonnay to somebody, how would you describe it? Would you be like it's a buttery, oaky?
No, it's not a buttery one.
It's a bright, juicy, medium-bodied, dry finish, easy coffee.
Yeah, stone
great
fruit.
with food.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What would you want to be drinking this with?
You know, Russ. You know the answer to this.
More Chardonnay.
This is the seafood Chardonnay, I think.
Oh yeah, good with great with prawns,
Because it's rich enough to go with that really bright seafood,
but it's got
but
enough
crisp enough that it doesn't overpower.
and it's got enough citrusy notes to it to hang in there with things like prawns and
Crayfish is pretty good.
Ian has gone and said it's going very nicely with some manchego.
Ooh. Yeah, alright.
Yes.
Hats off to you there.
Now, before we move on to the other Chardonnays, in the Decanter Awards, the Summa Imperio Chardonnay won the best Chardonnay of the year. So that was declared the best Chardonnay in the world yesterday.
Whoa.
An Australian.
Wow.
That's
very
particularly tricky. We don't talk about these sort of award things a lot, but Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are really tricky categories.
Well,
For those wines.
that particular award's a good one because it has the judges are like 3 or 4 of the top wine writers and about half a dozen masters of wine. So it's just like
Yeah. Done
there's
well.
no winemakers or no invested interest.
No, that's fair. They're just like,
Yeah.
this tastes good. That sounds good.
Um,
It's funny, Greg has said, I was at a wine tasting last year where somebody kept on going about how they were ABC, anything but Chardonnay, but then continued to drink a number of Chardonnay-based French wines, saying they were delicious. It gets a bad name. So people think Chardonnay's bad,
Well,
but I think it's the whole
two-
Kathy Kim thing, isn't
Well,
it?
two things happened there, and it started off with we sold a lot of Chardonnay to particularly the British and stuff, and they used to say, "Oh, sunshine in a bottle." So they got this idea about that, and we started making. They got so tropical fruity, they were just like
A bit
tin pineapple juice
juicy.
with
Yeah,
wooden staves, and like a caricature of a wine.
yeah.
They weren't really a wine; they were just a caricature of themselves. They got silly. They were just
Yeah.
silly,
Yeah.
and they just got more and more and more and more full on and more full on.
But
So
were
it
the
was-
British
it
enjoying
got to the
them?
point of everyone saying, "What the hell is this rubbish?"
Mm.
And then right to that point, we're all at that breaking point with the silly Chardonnay is when Kath and Kim did the Chardonnay thing,
Okay.
and that was the death of it. And then everyone went anything but Chardonnay.
yeah,
And I think
okay.
it was justified because I think the whole industry got in Australia about Chardonnay got completely out of control and went somewhere they shouldn't have gone.
It's winemakers and consumers when the whole thing comes to a head in the wrong way. It's just like and so for a lot of people there's like this image of like obviously your over fruit with cheap wooden staves thrown in it to be sold to the English, and
Bottled
I
up
must admit,
vinegar.
Kath and Kim in your green armchair in the green garden
well,
chair.
topping up the comment there though is I've done that regularly. I've had people saying I don't like Chardonnay, so have a Chablis then. And they get stuck in this Chablis and they go, how good is this? This is sensational. Yeah, and it's like, and you know they make it with Chardonnay grapes, don't you? Oh, they don't use Chablis grapes?
No.
Chablis grapes are Chardonnay.
Sometimes, and this is a conversation we were having last week, you know, about blind tastings. You know, sometimes if you want to change someone's mind, you get them a wine that's a different wine to what they're used to. So if they're used to really oaky Chardonnays, get them a light, crisp Chardonnay. You cover up that label, and you make them really sniff it and smell it and
give it a
analyze
proper
it.
go.
Yeah. And because they don't know it's Chardonnay and it's different to the Chardonnay they've been drinking before, they're more likely to give it a chance, and they might really enjoy it.
Well, yeah, this is certainly one like a Chardonnay that I haven't tried before, and I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Andy and Ashley both have Manchego as well. It's Manchego kind of night. Delicious.
Champion.
Beautiful.
Well, alright, should
let's
we move on?
What are we going to do now?
Chain of ponds.
These guys are in Adelaide Hills, aren't they?
Yeah. Quite an old vineyard, actually.
My understanding is they're called Chain of Ponds because there were these chain of ponds and they didn't know how they kept on coming about. And even in summer, everything else would dry out apart from these ponds, and they didn't have any water source to them. So it's all a bit of a mystery.
Well, yeah. And then they discovered that basically all of Adelaide Hills from Barossa up north down to McLaren Vale, a lot of it is fed by underwater aquifers. So hence why all these ponds would keep popping up in all the foothills of Adelaide.
The chain of ponds.
So yeah, and the town actually, when this is made, they actually changed their name to Chain of Ponds. It's the name of the town now.
Oh. So we just had a Yarra Valley Chardonnay, and we're going on to South Australian.
And Adelaide Hills.
Adelaide Hills. Now, what
those
sort of...
two, that's
mixing up
who's that?
glasses.
That's fine.
Now, what is the colour of this one like? Oh, I'll guess it. Wow, it's very yellow.
One for you, one for you.
It is a little bit more yellow, this one. Yeah, I was doing a bit of research. This vineyard's changed hands a couple of times. It's been replanted and had vines added to it a couple of times. But it is one of the oldest vineyards in Adelaide Hills. Yeah, so
And
quite interesting.
This is a 2018
Again,
as well.
yeah.
Does Chardonnay age well?
It can.
It can.
It depends on how it's made.
Okay. As
Now-
in, like, made well, or as in, like, the how you make it?
Well, there's a number of determining factors. One of the big things in that whole phase of tropical fruit stuff was this thing called the malolactic fermentation, which is a secondary fermentation which winemakers can make happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chardonnay, that gives that big creamy buttery kind of tastes and goes well with American oak. But the trouble with malolactic thing is what it acts on. It instead of eating the normal fermentation, it eats the sugars in the wine. It's the main thing it feeds on to produce the alcohol. The malolactic, the main thing it feeds on is the acids in the wine. So
it has less.
yeah,
acidity.
so that makes it softer and buttery, and that gives it all that mouthfeel
But it won't
because
be
it's
as
reduced
crisp.
all the acids, so it will never be as crisp.
Ah,
Too
okay.
much malolactic, it gets flabby.
Yeah.
Feel in the mouth, like it gets really blah.
I've had
But the
some-
other thing with the malolactic fermentation is it eats the acid in the wine, and the acids in the wine are generally what gives wine its
Longevity.
structure, but also helps it to age. The aging process breaks down the acids, and that's what aging's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing with the malolactic fermentation is a little bit of it
Mm-hmm.
can be a good thing, and it will still age. Too much of it, and it'll last 2 or 3 years, and then it falls apart and just tastes like blah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And malolactic fermentation is a bit of a dangerous thing for some winemakers because a little bit's good, gives enough richness to carry the oak flavors really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you take out the acidity, it much like a lot of things, it just doesn't
Stand up.
it just doesn't survive. It doesn't just age badly; it goes off.
Yeah. Okay. Lisa's saying this one is a little bit buttery. And so,
So
it's not too
that's
heavy.
a good time to talk about the malolactic because that's what it is.
And yeah, Christine said smells a little bit bready. Ian has says love a good hit of old mallow fermentation. Bit of
It's almost nutty on the nose.
Whoa, yeah, it is.
Like
Almost macadamia.
Yeah, but see, there's
chestnuts?
little or no mallow in that one, but it's definitely in this one. So that's what we're.
I like the slang mallow. I'm going to use that now. Got a bit of
yeah.
mallow in your shardy, Chardonnay.
Well, it's one of those things. It's one of those silly winemaking jargon that is actually of use here. You know, obviously we talk about tannins.
Tannins
and you can't talk about
tannins.
Chardonnay without talking about malolactic fermentation, and it sounds very complicated, but it's just about
Yeah, the first time I heard that,
how
I was
buttery
like,
your
huh?
wine is really.
But too much of it, it can just be that big pineapple juice without the acid. So it's sort of tastes like sort of pineapple cordial.
Yeah, okay.
Just, well,
Blah.
Someone once described it to me as a wine that's had too much malolactic fermentation and has aged too much. It's like going to the supermarket and buying a bottle of tropical fruit home brand conditioner.
Ooh.
And when they described that, I was like, ew, that is the last thing I'd want to drink.
Oh.
And yeah, the texture is not great.
Andy says an indication of the potential for aging. Last year I enjoyed a 1996 Nicholson River Chardonnay and it was still really good.
Champion.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm lucky to get his hands on some Nicholson River Chardonnay too, boyo.
Yeah.
But those guys down there are like, you've got to strangle it out of them. If you go down there to chat to the winemaker, if he doesn't like you, he's not.
Yeah, Andy must have his connections.
You must have a special touch, mate. I can tell you that.
This is a really interesting.
Christine said maybe hot buttery toast and a bit of macadamia. I definitely agree with macadamia. That's what I
Yeah,
got straight away.
macadamia's coming through. I still think a bit of chestnut. And I think there's a bit of fruit in there. There's almost like a peachy sort of.
Yeah. There's definitely peach in there.
It's
I
not.
get like a tiny bit, or like the sweetness of a pineapple, but it's not quite as
Not there
tropical as a
Yeah.
pineapple.
It's like the smell of a fresh pineapple. It's not when you like.
Yeah, it's not when you eat
It's
it.
not the
and-
taste.
No.
Not stewed pineapple.
Not stewed pineapple?
Sorry.
Sorry if we get a bit silly when we talk about pineapple. Russ is kind of allergic to
I'm
pineapple.
allergic to pineapple.
Oh.
I'm allergic to 2 things. Well, no, I'm allergic to 3 things. No, 4 things. Oh.
We did.
So where were we? Oh, we're talking about?
Talk about the
Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
I'm allergic to politicians. Yay!
Anyway,
And bullshit. Yeah, anyway, move on. Next.
language.
Oh, and pineapple pun.
What about on the palate? Shall we go in?
I'm still
I'm
getting.
a little bit nervous about this one because it's more buttery and I don't know.
I can smell a bit of oak on that too. By the way, there's a slight oakiness to it.
It's quite short in the palate.
Really short. Not.
Straight to the middle palate. Like, boom,
Yeah, it's like punch in the face, straight through the middle, and then gone.
straight in the middle palate.
Oh, Ian has had hints of rock melon on the nose.
Yeah.
A little bit of lemon as well, or maybe even, so the pineapple.
This is what vintage?
I
is
think the
this?
rock melon.
2018.
2018.
Yeah, rock melon.
I don't know that this is my favourite.
I
I'm
think
really
this.
surprised.
I think this would be really good with oysters. By the way.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
This
okay.
would be an oyster of a wine. It's like.
Oh,
An
the
absolute
world is
pearler.
your the world is your oyster with this one.
That's it.
I'm really surprised by how short in the palate this is. I don't know. I feel like more of a buttery smell. It would be longer. No. Yes.
It's interesting. I mean, sometimes more. The texture of the wine is not always the size of the wine. You know, we talk about malolactic fermentation with like oaky, buttery, oily sort of flavors. It doesn't mean it will have
A lot of
huge,
there's still a lot
long
of
palate.
Yeah.
Might be rich, but it might not go all the way from front to back.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the interesting thing about Chardonnay is you can make a really oaky Chardonnay that's got a really short palate,
Yeah.
Or you can make a really oaky one that has a really.
long palate.
Lisa says more delish. Yummy.
How do we feel about this? Does it need a bit more time?
Ooh, Christina says lemon curd.
Yeah, it's
Lemon
a bit
People
curd.
lemony.
say people saying lemon.
Yeah, it's a bit lemony. On the finish.
Lemon curd's a good bet.
That's why I think that the lemony bit was why I think it'll go well with oysters.
That's true.
I don't think it's crisp enough to go with oysters.
Dang! Just had to buy some oysters and find out.
One way to find out.
I mean, you look, you get away with
Would you eat
Oh,
you get away with prosciutto or
something salty?
your manchego cheese.
Manchego cheese?
Back in
Yeah.
into the man. Yeah.
I'm going to warm this up a little bit. I'm going to see if this opens up. My concern is that there's a little bit of oak and a little bit of fruit in here. And we've got these quite cold. We have just pulled these out of our fresh crisp fridge.
Ooh, trying some. Ian has said trying some toasted Turkish bread with smoked ocean trout, baby capers, and a little bit of mayonnaise. Some capers would go alright for this. I think something salty would be good.
Capers? I get capers. That's for sure. Even a prosciutto parma would be good. So some rock melon, thinly sliced rock melon with prosciutto could be pretty good.
Yeah. Is there
Actually,
anywhere?
that would go really well.
Is there anywhere in particular you'd be wanting to drink it? Do you think a Chardonnay is more of a summer wine, winter?
Oh, I'm not good to say that because I can drink Chardonnay
Yeah.
Anytime.
anytime.
I think Chardonnay, it depends on the style of Chardonnay.
Where would you drink this one?
I think this is like a spring afternoon by
No, I
the
think
river.
This is more summery than that one. I think.
The Yarrawood.
Yeah.
And it's more fruity.
Hmm.
Fruitier.
Both are afternoon wines, but I think this is more autumnal. This is more summer. Just more.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Actually, a pretty good white wine for this current weather.
Neither of them spring wines.
What?
No, I disagree.
No?
I quite like this as a spring
You
wine.
can spring into that.
Yay.
What do we think about the wine, Russ?
Oh, sorry.
The wine.
I just transported to somewhere on a spring day as opposed to drizzly Melbourne yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is opening up a bit more. There you go. And that being said, Chardonnay is one of those wines that can completely change on how cold it is as well.
Yeah,
Like you can get it out of the fridge and it will be really crisp and sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And then you let it sit for a couple minutes and it opens up and gets a little bit warmer and all of those oaky, warm, buttery flavours can come out.
Yeah, okay. Do you reckon this one would age well?
I don't
Or
think
badly?
so.
Or
No.
how long do you reckon this would last for?
Oh, 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 more years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be letting it more than that.
Quick,
Yeah.
drink it.
It might. I can't see it aging.
Okay.
I can see it falling apart before it does any aging.
Okay.
So
this is the sort of prime.
do specifically say that these line of wines are made to drink now.
Okay.
They're sort of everyday drinking sort of wines.
Mm.
And also that shortness on the palate implies that it might not have enough structure to last a long time.
Yes, okay. Indeed.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yum. Do we have any last comments on the chain of puns?
Ooh, actually,
Oh, we do.
the texture's changed as it's opened up. It's become a little bit, that nuttiness has come back in the palate. Like macadamia's back.
See, I haven't... or even like, is it pecans?
Mmm.
Bit of those?
Almost, I dare say, walnut?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm going more pecan, I think.
Pecan?
Yeah.
Mm. I don't know how I feel about this wine. I think this is the kind of wine that needs to go with food. That's my personal thinking.
Where you could just have a little quite cheeky one of those on its own.
Oh, I would absolutely
little
drink
cheeky
the
one of
Yarrawood.
those?
I would absolutely drink the Yarrawood by itself.
No, nice. Fantastic.
Without
Well,
obstruction, I would say. Let's get past the water.
there's a will, there's a way.
Pass the water.
Boys.
You hear that? You don't hear that from Luke very often. Pass the water.
We're preparing for the Howard Park. Now, moving on to Howard Park, Margaret River.
Yep.
Hang on, give me a moment.
I've never tried a Margaret River wine before. What's the climate like?
Ute.
What's the climate like? Ideally suited for Cabernet and Chardonnay, in fact.
Okay. There
Sort
you
of
go.
a bit
hard to make wine in Margaret River? I think because of what's be quite dry. I presume?
No, well, it varies. There's more than one climate in Margaret River. What happens is you've got the Margaret River itself sort of faces onto the Indian Ocean, the seascape there, and it's sort of like it's like any of the ocean beaches around Victoria. You've got this huge sort of like bluff that rises up, and then it rolls back to a bit of an escarpment.
Yes.
And then it rises to a ridge, and then it flattens out a bit, and then it slopes way back.
It's quite interesting.
So along that edge of the escarpment, you have all the really famous wineries. So you have Lewin Estate, Cape Mentelle.
Oh, I didn't know Lewin Estate.
And they're all along the same ridge. There's a contour that you can draw a contour line, and they're all got their vineyards in that contour.
And I've got to
they're
say,
all the top ones.
in terms
And then
of
once
a
you
cellar
get
door
over the
tour,
ridge,
it's dangerous too.
yeah, but once you get over the ridge, the soil and the terroir changes completely. So when you get further back, like once you get a couple of miles back, it goes like a muddy clay crap back there, and it's quite a different climate because whatever's there, it's a bit more humid and it just sits.
Yes.
On the escarpment, it gets to a certain temperature in the day, and then the sea breeze comes in, so it's fairly consistent ripening temperature for a long time.
It's quite
Yeah.
like a lot of the prominence of Pinot Noir being planted in Mornington and Bellarine,
Yeah.
being by the sea, levels out the temperature a lot.
Mhm.
So certain parts of Margaret River are really quite cool in comparison to a lot of the state.
Mhm.
So a lot of people think, oh, Western Australia really, really hot and sunny.
Yeah, that's what
But
I was
because
thinking.
they're down south and they're right on the coastline,
Mhm.
some of these like
It'd
almost
be
beachfront
fairly-
wines
it'd
are
be-
like quite cool.
It'd be fairly synonymous with like around Red Hill on the Mornington Peninsula. You've got the elevation because it comes right up to it, and the sea breezes come in the afternoon, so that never gets stinking hot. Where when you get over the top of it, it's more humid and foggy, and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter.
It's
So-
sunny with a cool breeze.
yeah, but you're still
It's
even,
lovely.
5 miles in, they still call it Margaret River, but it's not anywhere near the same geography as this bit on the.
Yeah.
And all along that ridge is all the really important ones. You've got, as I say, Lewin Estate, Cape Mentelle, etc., etc., etc. And when you get the right one next to Cape Mentelle is in fact Howard Park. So.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I was about to ask, where does Howard Park sit into this one? Fantastic.
And a lot of those wineries are very well established, have been there for a very long time and are not going anywhere.
But interestingly, I know the first time I went there, it really struck out because you go to Lewin Estate and you taste it, this Chardonnay's good, and it's $80 a bottle, and you go to Cape Mentelle, this is great, this is blah blah blah, and that's $75 a bottle. And then you get to Howard Park, and this one, and go, this is the best we've had all day. How much is that? $28.
Yeah,
And you think,
nice.
What?
I'll give me a few of those.
And the winemakers at Howard Park it's about making the wine that they want to drink. And they do a really good job.
I feel like that's a good way to start with a wine, as long as you.
Well, I mean, there's lots of different types of approaching winemaking, and sometimes it's about, they're a bit of an artist and they want to play around and experiment and see what they can do with the wine.
Yeah.
Then you've got the people who really like their formulas, that get really into the science of it.
Yeah.
And then there's people who come from a good, solid eating and drinking background. They want it to go well with food,
Yeah.
and they want it to be strong, robust, age pretty well, do everything you need it to do,
Yeah.
not be overly pretentious.
Now, looking at this wine, it looks a very similar colour to the Yarrawood.
Really, I was thinking it's yellower.
It is a little bit. I think it's a
I'd
little
say
bit
it's
yellow.
darker.
Bit yellower?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think it's
Yep.
Yellower.
okay.
That's just my thing.
Oh, ooh. And we were bottling some of this up yesterday, and I love the smell of this wine. It's not just that it's oaky; it's a little bit almost
What
funky.
is that?
It's like a nutty, yeasty sort of smell. Not in a bad way, but almost like
I still get the stone fruit thing happening though.
like a sourdough sort of a smell.
You think? I definitely get stone fruit.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like that funky,
But
yeasty,
You like sour yeast.
sour yeast.
So are we thinking then a wild ferment as opposed to?
Yeah, wild fermentation for sure.
I haven't read the label. What they say about that?
This actually reminds me of a lot of what we'd call old school Australian white wines. A lot of the people that used to produce Cabernets would make wines like this.
Yeah. Okay. Christina says this is the first one that gives me floral vibes. I smell honeysuckle. It's interesting. I was talking to Christine before. She's not much of a Chardonnay drinker. She was giving it a go, which is good.
The honeysuckle does come through actually.
And Liz has gone yeast.
Yeah. It's really interesting, and this is Chardonnay. We talk about malolactic fermentation, or it's like crisp and dry. I think something like the Howard Park is a really great conversation piece about some really interesting winemaking techniques, because yeast has its own flavour here. It's not what the yeast has brought out in the wine. It brings its own.
But again, it's one of those things that something to do with Chardonnay.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of white wines you won't be able to make a wine where you can taste that yeasty flavour.
Well, the other thing to be said about Chardonnay, we didn't go into the full history of it, is one of the major components in most sparkling wine.
Yeah, Chardonnay Pinot Noir.
Yeah. And then they pick it a bit early, and they make sure you can taste the yeast. So
Yeah. I dare say this is a wine that would go really well after a glass of champagne.
still 13%, so it's not like it's been.
No, they haven't mellowed it out too much.
I almost get like a little bit of honeydew.
Yeah, that's a good get. That's a great get.
Great get.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, honey
What
juice.
else is there?
I'll get a bit of honey
There's
juice.
almost, I hate to say this, but like really fresh blood orange, like that really acidic,
No, I don't get it.
bright.
I get the honeydew. I don't get the blood orange.
You
Mate.
have been juicing a lot of blood oranges lately.
I
So
have.
maybe you're like,
No,
yes, blood orange.
If anything, that would mean I know what it smells like.
That's true.
Yeah, yum. All right, I'm going to dive into the palette because I can't wait any longer. And for everyone at home, this is the 2019.
2019.
Pretty flavourful for a young wine.
Christina says tasting pears. And tasting the oak and getting honey at the very end.
It's funny to have this after the chain of ponds.
Yeah.
This is such a long wine. Like, and it's not huge and round and flabby, but it's really silky and long all the way across the palate.
And it has a very different mouthfeel, I think, because the other ones, I guess, are slightly shorter palate, but this one you can still kind of feel it.
It's
almost.
it's like pears and butter and yeah, a little bit more tropical. Some of the tropical fruits come back in.
Ashley
Lemon butter?
has
Lemon
said
butter.
a little bit grassy. Did you want to jump in?
Sure.
We've just got a Vivian that has joined
A
us.
wild Vivian has appeared.
Oh, wow,
Whoa,
Vivian.
The ferial.
Have you got Howard Park?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Howard Park's my favourite.
Yeah.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I've been tasting red wine. That's back.
Now
on
onto
my own.
Chardonnay.
So
And we were just thinking a bit of pear, maybe a bit of honeydew, a little bit oaky.
I'm getting the honeydew.
Liz says, going well with my dry white toast.
who said that?
Liz.
She was saying only yesterday that she feels under a bit of pressure now to come up with really fancy
Yeah.
food to go with her wine.
Ian has had very tasty sounding things, lots of mashego and like smoked trout. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a
Very
little bit
fancy.
jealous of what's happening at Ian's house.
Yeah, and Andy and Ash had manchego as well. Manchego kind of night.
Okay.
Oh, the pear. I love pears. And they can
Yeah, I can get lots of pear. I can't get that honeydew.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I hope I gave you the right one. I'm pretty sure I did. That looks the coldest.
Yeah.
Yep. Smell like Howard Park to you?
I think
Yep.
yeah, as I say, this is really interesting after the chain of ponds, which is such a short palette. And then we move to the Howard Park, which is just like pastries, dessert.
I get hints of
I get
slight
now,
flint and lemon lime on the finish, right on the end.
I get honeydew melon on the palate.
Yeah.
Not on the nose.
There you go.
I get pear on the palate.
I get all things.
Thinly sliced Corella pears.
This is one of my favourite Chardonnays, I reckon.
As I was saying earlier to Eva,
They've got a very cute dog too at Howard Park.
when we were bottling this, Eva was behind me bottling something else, and I was bottling up Chardonnay, and she just like looks over, and I just open the Howard Park, and it cracks, and I go, oh.
I know. Happy days.
And
Delicious.
There's something I really love about that yeasty smell.
Very nice.
It's totally, yeah, Russ, you're right. It reminds me almost of like a champagne style wine on the nose. That yeasty Chardonnay.
Oh.
Used with the intro.
Ian has said it's going well with his barbecue chicken wings, but I think it would go well with smoked chicken Waldorf with macadamia would be much better.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe you should order that next time.
Bloody hell.
He's in South Australia. He can eat whatever he likes. We have
That
to
is
eat what's in the
true.
fridge.
Yeah.
Mm.
Very
But smoked trout,
Turkey.
Smoked
Roast
turkey.
turkey.
Rosie?
turkey.
Yeah.
roast turkey.
Not
Interesting.
hot
Cold.
turkey. Like the next day, you make yourself a salad with some like nice shredded up cold bits of turkey.
That's a really interesting one to say.
No, because then
But yeah.
the turkey you could have that with some nice shredded apple or pear and walnuts and things.
Like a Waldorf salad. Yeah.
This is we're following
Yeah,
Ian down the rabbit
yeah.
hole.
A turkey Waldorf.
So what's everyone's favourite? Have we asked that already?
Ooh, I think
We haven't got
know.
that far yet. We're
Well,
still-
actually,
we're only halfway through this one.
as you just spoke, Christine said, of the three we've tasted tonight, the Howard Park is definitely the most likely revisit because she's not much of a Chardonnay drinker.
That's why we like Christine.
Uh-huh.
You're on it. I'm with you, girl. This is one of my faves.
Mm. I'm really impressed by the Yarrawood, I've got to say. I've always loved the Howard Park. I haven't had
Yarrawood is really good wine.
I haven't had the Yarrawood in a year or so, and it's
Well, we used to start rating at $19, but we've sold so much as they keep giving us more and more. So like it's
Yeah,
so
I think
16.
I think it's a seriously good wine for the price. I think it's a lovely Chardonnay, that one.
we do go through a lot of it, whether it be personal drinking or selling to customers.
Don't let the secrets out. We know what everyone should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Where do we want to be drinking this Howard Park?
In the sun in WA. Did I say that fast enough?
We were talking
You
about
could-
the weather in WA. That
Oh.
lovely summer, nice cool breeze.
The day we
just-
went to
oh.
Howard Park, it was just stunning. And it is the most beautiful winery. Not that they'll let you in, of course, until they open their borders in 2028. But it is a beautiful winery. There's no such thing as a starving winemaker, I don't think, in WA. They're doing very nicely.
Particularly in that strip.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
illustrious strip of Margaret
I
River.
know, there's these fabulous doors that are about 50 feet tall. And
Oh, and it's funny because some of the, like every 5 to 10 years you go down and one of them has remodeled their cellar door.
yeah.
And like sometimes you'll walk in and there's like beautiful polished floorboards, and then one year one of them will do
Yeah.
like a big industrial warehouse with like
Yeah.
all sorts of really like giant grand piano and like brutalist artwork on the wall.
Well,
It's
Howard
really
Park, you
interesting.
could fit, I don't know, with social distancing, you could fit about 150 people in the tasting
Ooh.
room. It's huge.
Jeez.
Absolutely. And it's huge soaring ceilings. It's glorious.
Oh, it's what like triple height. It's huge.
Yeah, if people, everyone.
He's just gone to sleep in his wine.
Yeah, Ross is just like
This
sitting
is
there.
the
having a
danger of
sip.
some of these wine tastings as well. Russ drinks a lot of Chardonnay. So you give him a glass of Chardonnay and it is instantly 6 o'clock at home.
No, I was in Margaret River. I was
Ah.
I was painting a picture.
Dreamy
he
of
was there.
Durham, yeah.
I was just there thinking,
Oh, that'd be nice.
am I at Howard Park
I
or,
forgot you came on that one with
or
us.
am I at Cape Mentel?
Yeah.
Well, we're getting lots of votes for Howard Park. We've got Liz, we've got Ian, and we've got Andy. Oh, actually, no, Andy said the Yarrawood. I quite like the Yarrawood as well. I think that's one of mine.
Well, the Yarrawood is half the price of the Howard Park.
Yeah.
But it's also they're different. They're quite a different wine, like that quite light, crisp.
Well, there's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit of oak influence on this too. So,
Yeah,
but I think that there's enough acid that this will actually last quite a long time.
Yeah, this is a
How
good
long
one.
is quite a long time?
10 years, I reckon.
10 years,
6
wow.
to 10, 6, 8.
Not bad.
there's that.
What year is this one?
2019.
There's a little bit of
Well, guess what though? I've tried to keep it for 8 to 10 years, but it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
In fact, you can't
Whoopsie.
keep it that long.
No.
That's our personal
There's a
experience.
nice grippiness on the back palate, which
Makes you want to drink more of it.
no, it's almost it's almost like that tannin structure's there.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking.
It's made like a red
for
wine.
Yeah, for a white wine.
Yeah. It's got a lot
haven't
going
had
for
my
it.
Chardonnay, but
Julio.
I'm actually. We might have to do some thinking. I think Howard Park might come up in some future red wine tastings as well.
and I think we've just ordered some of the rosé as well.
We have
Yes.
indeed.
we can't get it over the border.
Oh, we can't get it over the border.
They're playing, yeah.
Not
Ah. Tricky.
Anyway,
Tricky.
Yeah, it's, you know, one of those
Anyway,
stories. But,
enough.
anyway.
Well, do we have any last comments for Chardonnay at all? Apart from
If you
You
think you
love
don't
it a
like
lot.
Chardonnay, as with everything, if you think you don't like it, have a try.
Try it
Give
well,
different
a
yeah,
go.
I don't particularly like Chardonnay, but I quite like the Yarrawood. Personally, I did.
There you
I
go.
always actually question because I always found I've tried some Chardonnays before and I found them too diesely, like quite just it was just too much of alcohol. I think
Diesely.
diesely. It
You
was
sure
just
you're not
like
drinking?
No. I know what
Phenolic.
she means.
it was just what does that to Chardonnay or like what
I think you'll find it's probably the
just a bad Chardonnay?
in a tank.
In a tank.
In a tank made by one of the big producers. Too
Yeah,
much.
okay.
Too much.
I think that one of the
No. The two things that will happen is no, it's slightly
What you think?
overripe,
Yeah.
and they've added things like vitamin C, and it's what they've added to it.
Okay. So
There's
that'd be more of the cardy,
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
That's the
definite
Cardi.
Chardonnay.
the Chardonnay.
There's
Right.
certainly Chardonnay definitely benefits from the wood, and I think that we saw
Oh,
in
yeah.
the 80s. I think we saw too much.
Wood.
Well, yeah, that's
Oak
what we were talking about
and-
before. Yeah.
and I think now it's calmed down. But I think Chardonnay definitely needs good Chardonnay. I think definitely needs some wood. I think that,
But not too much.
but not too much. I think
I disagree.
But what they were doing with wood is they weren't putting it in barrels. They were adding oak staves into the stainless steel
Yeah.
fermentation tanks,
Ah,
and then they
okay.
went to just oak chips.
Yeah.
Then they what they called oak tea bags. It was just like wood shavings. What was left over from one they made that shaved the barrel. They put them in like Hessian
Ross,
sacks,
you're not going to
and
put
then
people off for life. No.
Oh.
What were you going to say, Luke?
I don't know.
But that
it's
makes a
taken
bad
away by
Chardonnay.
that.
That's
Yeah,
what I wanted to know.
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's like I've had some of those diesely phenolic Chardonnays, and it can be really interesting to see some of the wineries that those come out of. Will make a really good wine one year, and a really diesely wine the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the exact same formula, the exact same grape, the exact same weather, and it can just be about if the grape has overdeveloped a little bit too much.
You mean got too ripe?
Yeah, a little bit too ripe,
Right.
and then sits in a big metal tank for too long. You've got overdevelopment of fruit flavour, so really gutsy fruit flavour, and then you add stainless steel,
Yeah.
and
Is it
all
almost
just
like oily as well? Like too oily?
it sits in there and it gets claustrophobic almost
Yeah.
because you overdevelop the fruit flavour, and it just sits in this tank and like
Yeah.
just breathes its own fumes, and yeah, it just overworks itself into this huge diesely
Kind
mess.
of fine. Yeah.
yeah.
Lizzie said kerosene. Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets
Yeah.
that fume too,
Mm.
like that, almost like
You
Like,
said like
yeah.
Hunter Valley Seminoles, to be honest.
Just quietly said no.
Yeah,
I think it's usually when they're a bit too ripe.
yeah,
And let just sit.
and it can react with stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think well, personally, from that explanation, that's what gives Chardonnay a bad rap, I suppose.
Well,
Yeah.
but as we've discovered, I think almost
It's just-
every week, you think you don't like stuff, and you think you haven't
Mm.
drunk any of it, and then you taste something, and you go, actually, there's something,
Yeah. Ooh.
there's a version of everything that somebody will like.
Yeah, well, Christine has just said, I'm not a very experienced Chardonnay, but I'm happy to expand my knowledge as I spent my whole adult life driving into reds rather than whites, aside from Pinot and Gris. And so I think she's enjoyed some of these as well.
Good.
Mm.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Well,
Awesome.
do you have any
Good Chardonnay.
last Chardonnay comments?
Well, no, I think these are good fun because they're different expressions. I mean, this is obviously not a lot of oak, no
Slightly
malolactic
fruity.
fermentation, and just the expression of fruit and the Yarra Valley. This one has gone the other way. It's a bit more, definitely a bit more oak, and definitely some malolactic fermentation, all those things.
Mm.
And this one's sort of like somewhere in between the two.
Did anybody like the Chain of Ponds? I like the Chain of Ponds.
Nobody is.
I'm gonna straight up say I really didn't like the chain of ponds.
You really didn't like the Chain of Ponds.
I don't have a problem with the
Is that the Chain of
buttery
Ponds?
Mm-hmm.
malolactic fermentation. It just, the palate was just all punched in the middle and then just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think all of that malolactic fermentation squeezed into this really small palate.
Oh, I see.
I also think with that diesely kerosene thing is when the malolactic's been there and it's been left to age a bit and it's just gone, it's about to fall.
Too far. Yeah.
It's too far.
Okay.
Anyway, let's not do a complete character assassination.
But that's not that
No,
right.
that's good.
All right,
Chardonnay.
What are we doing next
We're
week?
doing American whiskey.
American whiskey. That's very exciting.
as we prepared earlier. Thank you very much, Vivian.
We're doing the George Dickel Tennessee
George Dickel
recipe
Tennessee
8.
sour mash whiskey.
Eh?
Someone's going to tell me next week what
The Wood-
sour mash means.
Woodford Reserve.
Which is one of my favourites just because it's such a pretty bottle.
And a really good bourbon. And Rittenhouse Rye.
Rittenhouse straight rye.
So we were having conversations about which of the American whiskies we do, and I thought it would be a good idea to do 3 different expressions. So we've got a Tennessee whiskey, a bourbon whiskey, and a rye whiskey. And for a lot of people at home, we will discuss what Tennessee whiskey is and how it is actually different from bourbon. But
We're going to
we'll
come
do
up
that
with
next
lots
week
of puns with that one as well.
for sure.
We are. Awesome.
And the week after that, we're doing champagne. Well,
Sparkling.
Sparkling.
Woo!
Um,
No, there will
or-
be champagne involved.
Or spankling.
Yes.
spangling.
Spangling.
Spangling is what it calls it. Because in a normal year, we should stop saying that. Because we are heading into Spring Racing Carnival. And although the only people who will be attending are horses and jockeys, it's very important to keep up your drinking end of the spectrum. So we'll be heading into spangling, as what it calls it. So we'll know what to drink while we're watching things gallop around in circles.
It's been a crazy week.
It has.
It has.
But yeah, all of that will be up on Facebook and Drinksmiths and all that usual jazz.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So,
Cool.
and we're also thinking
Cool.
we're putting together our Christmas list of not what we want, what you might like. So if you want to send us through some ideas about things that you'd like to see on our Christmas specials list, let us
Yes,
know.
cool gifts and all that jazz.
Gifts and things. We'll have tastings you can give to people as gifts, gift vouchers for tastings, things like that.
Well, I've
It'll be
been
fun.
talking to Steve at Fossey's today, and he's come up with an idea of customising labels for people.
But that's just an idea. Okay.
Oh, Ross likes to give away too much. It's only October last
You
week.
did not hear that here.
Nothing.
You did. It's true.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we shall see you next week,
All right,
everybody.
see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, drink
Bye,
guys.
guys. Bye.
Yeah.